So most tarot readings follow the format of the cards showing us the past, the present and the future. Even if you read with a Celtic cross, there is probably some cards there to represent what has happened, some cards to represent what is happening, and some card or cards to represent the most likely future. And I wanted to drill down a little bit more into what that means for me. So, reaching across, which is very unprofessional. You may or may not know that the runes for me came way before the tarot and are a huge influence on my life. This is my little rune book that is available from Amazon. And the runes have definitely influenced how I understand the past, the present and the future. And I associate these as Ood, the elder of the Norns, to represent the past, Verdandi, the mother, the Norn, to represent the present moment, for the present moment, and Skuld for the as yet unformed future. And for me, whatever cards represent the past, whether, let's say, for example, and I will do a live reading, but let's say we're doing what I think is my classic sort of 9-card reading here. So if I'm doing my 9-card spread, the 3 cards for the past, they represent Ood. They are the foundation of everything that has got you to this point. So if you are, let's say an example, there is a marathon booked for you to run in the summer, and you want to know, with a tarot reading, is it a good idea to go ahead and run the London Marathon this summer? Let's say that. These 3 cards for your past, they are going to represent your training up to this point. Are you fit? Are you healthy? Are you mentally well? They might represent your work. Is work going to allow you enough time off to go to London? They might represent family obligations. They are the foundation or the weight of the past that has got you to this point. So let's say you have a toddler, but let's say that your mum lives really close and is very happy to be supportive in looking after your toddler when you're doing your running. Then we might see that influence down here. In some ways, these 3 cards are the most important because these can't be changed. They represent the past. I personally believe the future is not fixed. So by understanding the past, by making the most of the present, I'm going to argue the future is changeable. Another way of looking at this is to think about a sport like archery. These 3 cards represent your stance, whether your arrow is lined up with the target, and whether with your strength and the size of your bow it is feasible you can hit the target. If it's impossible for you to hit the target because it's too far away, these cards will show that up really clearly. So for me, these 3 cards, the cards that represent the past that's created the foundation upon which you are now standing, are really important. In Norse mythology, they're Ood, the Norn that represents all that has been. When it comes to timing, these cards will be relevant to the question you're asking. Let's say, for example, last summer, this is completely made up by the way, but let's say last summer I was really inspired by the London Marathon and I have been training consistently, then these cards would be representing the past from last summer. Let's say that you've been married for 20 years and you're asking about the state of your marriage, then these cards may well represent the last 20 years. Or if the state of your relationship or your emotional sort of connection with your relationship is based on how you were parented, let's say your parents divorced and your father walked out, these 3 cards may represent all the way back to the point when your father walked out. They represent the past past that is appropriate to the question. I believe, so these three, you have to, these set the foundation. Is it possible? Have I done what I needed to do to make the end cards feasible? Arguably, these are the most important cards. These cards represent the present moment. Now, if the past, Ood, is the weight of everything that has happened, or the water in a well, for example, then these cards are Verdandi. They represent the surface tension of the water on the well. They represent the fleeting present moment. And yet the present moment is actually all that we have. If we're not careful, we can drown trying to understand the past, or we can lose ourselves trying to understand the future. But the present moment is where we are. Verdandi can be translated to mean becoming. We are constantly becoming. So pay attention to these cards. They matter. And you can, and I do, read these cards as advice. They might be warnings. They may be practical advice. They may be telling you to just go for it, or take a step back, you haven't got the perspective right. It's very easy to only be focused on the future. It's very easy with tarot to we think, well, I know my past, I know where I am, all I care about is it possible? But the thing is, if the future's not fixed, then understanding the foundation of where we are now, and understanding how to make the best use of where we are now, then we are influencing our future. In my connection with the Norns, the future is Skuld, and the idea of Skuld is she's the as yet unformed future. So that the past, Ood, represents the water in the well. The present, Verdandi, represents the surface tension on the well. And the future, Skuld, represents the water vapours rising up off the well. And so they are tenuous. It is not guaranteed. It is a prediction. It's not, there's no guarantee here. This is an art. So let's just, and another question people often ask is, what's the time frame for the future? Well, there's two ways to do that. The easiest way is to put that in place when you shuffle and ask the question. When you might say this reading is for the next 3 months, which I think is a really good time frame. Or if you have a project that you know is going to take a year or 2 years, that might be implicit. Or you can define it for yourself. So just sort of sharing a quick example. Just thinking what this could be, because I hadn't really thought that far. So my next tarot book, I will be writing that this year. It is going to be, it's not fictional, but it's more story based. It's weaving stories. It's not a how-to book. I'm just got a couple of projects I'm wrapping up in January and February, and then I really hope to start in February, actually. So let's ask. So I'm reading for this year. That feels right for me. I like to cut. So the book that I hope to write this year, what have I done to make sure I'm ready to write it? What is the foundation that I have built into my life up to this point? The Nine of Swords. Interesting. I was making this too complicated. It is a complicated book, and I was making it way too complicated. And then, as so often happens, I was out walking and I was like, oh my god, that is so much easier. I found a much easier way to do it. I was severely overthinking it, and now I have found a much better way to do it. The King of Wands, I've ummed and ahed over this book for quite some time. I want to do it. I'm desperate to write it, but I've already told you that I've got a couple of projects I need to finish first, one of which is to complete writing my in-depth tarot correspondence course, which is up and running if you fancy having a look. So I've got a couple of other I don't want to start writing this book till I can enjoy it. So I'm clearing some space. And I have definitely the Five of Wands. I have thought about a good way of structuring it that I'm excited about and is much better than what I was doing, which was overthinking. So the cards suggest that up till now the time has not been right to write this book, which is good because that means I'm not procrastinating. Right now, we're at the end of January, early February. What do the cards say? Okay, so now is the time to start writing the book. It feels right to me. It feels as if by the first week in February, I'm going to have a bit more time on my hands. The Nine of Wands would remind me, this is going to be a triggering book. It's quite a personal book. It is much more story based than any of the other books that I've written yet. So I often read the Nine of Wands as PTSD, hypervigilance. So a feeling that it will trigger some emotions in me, which doesn't surprise me. And I love the Six of Swords. To me, a good book it writes itself. It is a spiritual act. And I often associate the Six of Swords with spirit guides because of this big black pole here, the pole that we have in the Fool. So if I was going to read these as advice, I would say, yes, now is a good time to get started, but be prepared for the fact that it may trigger some emotional reaction, and just allow the book to come. Don't push it, don't stress, create the time and just allow the book to flow. So that feels really right for me. So by the end of the year, where could I be with this project? Okay, editing. The King of Swords would be good time management and editing. I hate editing. I much prefer the being in the flow and the righty bit. But that suggests that I could be in the position of editing. Interesting with the Devil. I do associate the Devil with creativity, but I think this book, I'm going to have to be careful because there's going to be some very truthful parts to this book, and I'm going to have to make sure it's edited really carefully so I don't get sued, basically, and also so that I'm comfortable with the outcome. So feeling that I need to be quite careful. And I do wonder about this. It's a project I really want to write. It's a project I intend to write, but these cards suggest that maybe it will take longer than I expect, or maybe it just won't flow quite as freely as I hope. Now that is disappointing. The card at the bottom of the pack is the Moon. Now the Moon often represents something you don't know. The moon does not shine, the moon only reflects, reflections are distorting. And even as I looked at these two cards, I was seeing kind of the middle row and up to this point and thinking, it feels really right, but somehow these two almost feel as if they're about something else. Now, you often find this with tarot. You think, yeah, I understand the past, I understand where I am now and how to make the most of it, and it seems to go in the right place, but something comes from the side. Don't restrict yourself to a 9-card spread or a 10-card spread. It feels to me that there's something else I need to know about this. So I'm going to ask. I play with my cards. I converse with my cards. So I'm just going to ask the slowing down of the process, because that's what it feels with the Devil and the Eight of Swords. Is that to do with the book, 3 cards, or is that to do with something else, 3 cards? And let's ask. is that to do with the book? That's slowing down. Okay, so it does feel as if something changes with the flow of the book. I am very conflicted as to whether to write this tarot storybook, as it were, a compilation storybook, or whether to write a book on shamanism. I'm very conflicted, but I'm going to stick to my spread, and I'm going to ask. And the Hanged Man I would always associate with Odin. The Death would be a change. The Two of Wands might suggest that I don't feel quite ready to follow through with this book yet. Maybe another book takes over. I'm going to ask that Eight of Swords, the Devil, is it due to something else coming into my life, and meaning that I don't have the space or the headspace to follow through with the book? Is it something else coming in? The Nine of Swords, the Two of Swords, the Magician, and the King of Swords. So the answer is both. So there is a feeling that perhaps I just feel a bit overwhelmed with having to write the book and work and raise a family, and I perhaps decide that I want to manage my time better. And there is a feeling as well that perhaps the book changes focus. If this was a professional reading, I would obviously be going a lot more slowly, but I like to bring every spread back to the present moment, because we can always improve our future by making the most of the present moment. So I'm going to ask the cards. The future for this book looks like I've done my work up to this point. Looks like I'm ready to move forward with it, but the prediction side isn't running as I would like. So I'm going to bring it right back to the present moment. How do I make the most of my work time right now? How do I maximize my creative potential for the future? Okay, I'm not good at working with other people. So the Two of Cups is an interesting one there. That it would help me perhaps to have a writing buddy, or to perhaps to basically form a good working relationship with someone else. That could dramatically improve the outcome of the book. The first tarot book that I published was meant to be a recording of the Nordic chants, and it just got moved because I was working with a creative coach. It got moved into the book, and I'm so glad it did. So the Two of Cups would suggest that maybe working with somebody else would help me to get this project right. The Hermit is feeling that maybe I need to pause and really reflect on what is the best writing project for me moving forward. And the Knight of Swords, that once I start writing, it's hard to change direction. So these cards would suggest that I probably don't quite have the right definition for my next book, and that a little bit of time spent now, perhaps connecting with a creative coach, reflecting on what will be the right book for me, would make the whole process a lot more enjoyable. So I hope that, I know it kind of went off a bit on a tangent, but tarot's like that. That's one of the best bits about tarot, I think. Don't be restricted by a Celtic cross or a 9-card reading or a 3-card reading. Keep shuffling, keep reading until you get the answer that you most need to help you move forward.